Hi, I'm Amy Finley, and this is Across the Fence. I had a milestone moment the other night. The weather is finally cooling off, and I decided to make my first soup of the season. I don't know about you, but I can't eat soup when it's hot out. Call me quirky. And while I was making it, I started thinking of my guest today, Dr. Amy Trubek. Amy, you're gonna like this. It was a corn chowder because we're in peak corn right now, but instead of using any stock, I put the cobs in the pot after I shaved off the kernels and used that to make a stock right in the soup. It's a cool trick to get more out of any seasonal ingredient and not let any of that delicious corn go to waste. Why was I thinking of Amy? One, because she's a dear friend and a fellow chef, but mainly because she's the director of the UVM Climate Kitchen, which focuses on building sustainable cooking practices. Amy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure. All right, so start off, explain for our viewers, what is Climate Kitchen?
Yes, so the Climate Kitchen is an initiative that we started 2 years ago, and we have been supported by the Food Systems Research Institute and other entities at UVM to try to bring together and create a dynamic maker space and sort of network of people who are trying to look at and think about and solve problems at the intersection of food systems and climate change.
Okay, and it's also a kitchen, right?
And at the heart of it is a physical space where we actually take all of this sort of, at times, really overwhelming data and values and perceptions about where we are going in this world, on this planet, and trying to actually tangibly solve problems through the acts of transforming food from the raw to the cooked.
Yes, it's okay. So you talked on that a little bit, but so what's the goal, right?
Yeah.
We're cooking.
Yeah.
Why are we cooking? How are we using cooking?
Well, you know, there's two ways I could answer that question. First of all, everybody has to eat every day.
Everybody has to eat every day. Yes, truism.
Somebody has to do the work of making the food palatable for us to eat. And that is what cooking is about. And cooking, as you know, happens in many different settings, in many different mediums, but we need to think about those moments if we want to make any change from how we grow, what are the consequences of how we grow and what we grow, and then to what we eat and why we eat what we eat.
Right, because people leave cooking out of the equation. They don't think about it. It's not the first thing they think about. They think about the end and the goal, but they don't necessarily think about the steps that are going to get you to that goal. One of which, when we're talking about, and we're going to ask you a question in a second, about sustainable cooking practices, the idea that it's not just the growing of the food, the sustainable food, but it's also then about like, how did we transform it? How did we cook it? And how does that play into people having these sustainable diets? So that's me. Talk about sustainable cooking practices. What does that mean?
Well, you know, there are a lot of, as you know, there are many ways that one can think about sustainable cooking. But in the Climate Kitchen, we decided to focus on 5 tenets of practice. Because one of the things we want to do is have people pay more attention to that moment, the sort of moment of transformation of cooking, but also to give everyone, in a sense, not just people at home and people cooking at home, but people working in restaurants, people doing research on food-related topics. We wanted to give them not guardrails, but a kind of way of thinking that would help focus, because it's so big. Overwhelming.
Yes.
Like just the decision to use the corn cobs. That's a great decision, but if you didn't have a little help understanding that that's a decision you could make and what is a sustainable practice, you might not have done it.
Right.
So that's a low-waste practice.
Low-waste practice, exactly. Like that there are these, could you want to tell us a little bit about what those 5 tenets are?
Absolutely. So local and regional sourcing, respect for sensory preference, because one thing we find is sometimes people will just imagine some American consumer, but who is that person? We actually have a lot of complicated ways. We have sensory preference.
And for people who are cooking at home, about acknowledging the fact that you have likes and dislikes, and just because something is quote unquote good for the environment doesn't mean that you like it, and if you don't like it, then doing that and eating it on a regular basis, cooking it, is not sustainable for you. Okay.
Utilizing the whole product, so like that is an example of the corn cob. plant forward, because there's a lot of evidence that we, for many different reasons, for individual and planetary health, that we should be more plant forward.
Yes.
And low waste.
And low waste. Yeah. I know, I was doing the same thing.
I was like, I know there's one more. Low waste. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the ways too that students, so undergraduates and students, the Climate Kitchen is a lab also. It's a physical space on the UVM campus, the foods lab.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that undergraduates and graduate students, let's talk about undergraduates get a chance to interact with the Climate Kitchen is through classes. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the class that we teach that is the most aligned with the Climate Kitchen is Foods for Planetary Health. And that has been a very exciting collaboration between faculty in the Nutrition and Food Science Department who have a lot of background in understanding sustainable diets from the point of view of nutrition, but also environmental health. And we devised a course to teach undergraduates how to think about analyzing data and all the different measures and metrics that are being used to say why we need to change our diets for individual and planetary health, but then we have them apply what they're learning in the lab.
That's the hands-on piece.
And that's the hands-on piece. And so we do a lot of different things where we try to encourage. We're going to use local and regionally sourced foods. And as you know, for example, one thing is we teach the class in the spring semester, which is not peak harvest time here in Vermont.
Right.
And so one of the things that we did was devise.
A lot of potatoes.
We were like,
vegetables.
Eat a lot of cabbage, eat a lot of potatoes, eat a lot of onions. And in fact, we found the students really responded to that because it wasn't, they didn't even understand or know that they could use cabbage 5 different ways over 5 different weeks. And so anyway, it's that type of work that we done a lot in the Foods Lab.
And there's a certificate program, I think, too, that is in development or is currently offered. So is this something that maybe even in the future, people who are maybe watching this show right now and thinking, I'd like to learn a little bit more about it, is it something they might be able to also take?
Yeah, the direction we're really going with that, which I'm very excited about, is to create an open source platform whereby we're going to have materials that are related to the Foods for Planetary Health curriculum. And then we will be creating means by which we're going to be training people to use them. But in a lot of ways, we think in the future it might be something that somebody at home might be able to follow along and do that kind of work. So it may or may not be a certificate, but it'll definitely be publicly available.
Yeah, because in the classroom, in the kitchen, you know, the kitchen portion of that class that you do with the students, cooking for planetary, foods for planetary, cooking for planetary, whatever one it is. That's what they're doing. It's the cooking is where then the knowledge and the ideas about like the metrics you were describing, those then become tangible because they then start applying them to recipes and seeing how recipes express these ideas because of the ingredients that are chosen or because of the cooking techniques. I know that there are some tools too that you're using in the kitchen setting that were specifically chosen because they add this sustainable element. Like what are some examples of that?
Oh, yes. So, yes.
I happen to know that Amy likes to talk about dehydrators. So
yes. So I got really into thinking about dehydrators. I'm really interested in thinking about storage because if we're going to do sustainable cooking, we have to take on a certain amount of the work of making sure it's low waste and utilizing whole product. Now, it may be in the end that we'll have other people do that and we'll buy those elements like the pickles and the fruit leathers and all these things. But we also want people to try to do it at home. So we are encouraging or teaching the students through using tools and techniques that they might have not used before. Instapots, quick pickles. Freezing and dehydration.
See, this is where I think it starts to sound accessible to people at home too, because this might be a part of their life and things that they're already doing, putting up food, making preserves, doing, pickling and things like that. It's a form of a sustainable practice because you're practicing some preservation. You're capturing the harvest now and putting it aside so that you can use it again later. So there was a summer institute. You had a bunch of researchers from lots of different types of disciplines together, and they were using the lab to do some discovery. What were some of the dishes that came out of that?
Yeah, so we had I called them teams, and they took it on. We had 4 different thematic groups of people that were working in the foods lab over the summer who have ideas about thinking about doing research and ultimately sort of creating environments or particular products that help meet some of these food systems climate change issues. So one group—
Did they make anything tasty?
Yeah, you know, and it was really fun. It was really fun because people have a lot of ideas and everyone eats all the time.
Yeah.
So everyone thinks that they understand.
And they were using some things that were like even growing on campus, right? Like the aronia berries?
Yes. So I will have to say there was a Team Edible Food Forest which have planted a whole, at the Hort Farm, at the UVM Hort Farm, they planted 400 different plants that are all plants that ultimately will bear fruit, literally bear fruit, or different kinds of things. There are also bear mushrooms or all these things. And they really wanted to think about how could they have those ultimately, would there foods that could be made that could be given to UVM students?
Oh, so students love things like acai or acai bowls, I'm not sure how you say it. Right, so they made something like that,
a berry kick. They called it the berry kick.
Okay.
And it turns out that there's this hedge of aronia berries right by the Catamount, between the Catamount and Bailey Library. This hedge of them. And Jaden, who's a graduate student who was also an undergraduate, was like, we can use these berries. And so he brought them in and we worked with how to cook them.
That is so incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so Amy and I could continue to keep talking for forever. But to learn more about the Climate Kitchen and ways that you can make your own cooking more sustainable, check out the Climate Kitchen website. Information is on the screen. Amy, I mean, it's always a pleasure talking to you again. We could continue to do this for forever. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Vermont, for learning and exploring with me today. And thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.